and they don't want any attention brought to me. So, for example, as I've revealed before, I bribed Hillary Clinton $18 million I caused Hillary Clinton to be offered and take a bribe in mid-July of 2016 by the FBI. The FBI had me facilitate a bribe for Hillary Clinton, which I accomplished. They also told me she had already taken one bribe for $20 million, and I got an $18 million bribe in her face, and she took it. And I've been shown the bank records that show that she took it. So they don't want any attention being brought to me. That's probably why they omitted my name when they leaked the story. I'll tell you a bombshell.
Why they did not, I know what's in the Durham report, and I'm going to say it here. I bribed Hillary Clinton $18 million. I facilitated a bribe for Hillary Clinton on January 14th, 2016, right here in this town. On behalf of the FBI, they came to me around December 1st, 2015. They told me Hillary Clinton had accepted a bribe from Turkey for $20 million. They told me that I would be working for a group in New York, FBI agents, who had authorization to set Hillary Clinton up in a sting. They asked me to facilitate a bribe for her, an $18 million bribe from another government. The bagman from that other government I was to befriend, and I was to get that person 10 minutes alone in a room with Hillary Clinton. I did. On January 14th, 2016, Hillary Clinton was in this town, and she met in a way that was kept off her schedule. She accepted an $18 million bribe. But General Barr knows this. This is the Durham. They know this was what is behind it all. And I'll even tell you, I'm going to drop one more thing. I've been waiting to say this publicly, and this is what really happened. I will tell you, if you hear this and you give me 90 seconds, your viewers will understand what's happened in the last 5 years in America. I've been waiting to say this on mainstream TV, and they will not have me back because once they understood what this was about. I had Hillary Clinton, I caused Hillary Clinton, I facilitated a bribe, and she took a second bribe for $18 million. And I worked with the FBI as I did that. They're deeply involved in this. They came to me 3 days later and told me I had to forget about it and forget that it ever happened. And I said, what are you talking about? And they gave me one excuse. They said, Hillary's going to win, and it's been decided upstairs. Nothing's going to be able to stop that now. So she's going to win, and she's going to send her people over to the FBI and ask who was part of investigating Hillary, and any of us who were part of it are going to be destroyed, and that includes you too, Patrick. And so this mission has been scrubbed from the highest level. And I thought about that, and I said, yes, sir, and I came. But 2 or 3 weeks later, I was back with 3 federal agents this time. 3 federal agents, and I let them know that wasn't sitting, and this is in Salt Lake City, Utah, and that wasn't sitting well with me, and I'd like to know why. We had almost a year before the election. They could have had me and another person in front of a grand jury in a week and gotten her indicted. And they told me, and this is the key to understanding what's happened in America. They told me, this is word for word, Patrick, what's really going on is this. President Obama has his people across the federal bureaucracy at this point, but especially the Department of Justice. Hillary Clinton is going to be president for 8 years, and nothing's going to change that. But think of there being a Bunsen burner within the Department of Justice. That evidence about the 2 bribes you were part of gathering is going to be sitting on the Bunsen burner. And the hand on the Bunsen burner is going to be one of Barack Obama's people. If Hillary's a good girl and defends Obamacare, that flame stays low. If she's a bad girl and thinks for herself, it's going to get turned up high. That way, Barack Obama is going to manage Hillary Clinton for the 8 years she's president, and then she's going to step down, and Michelle's going to run. And Patrick, that's the plan. That came out of the lips of a federal agent. It was confirmed to me this spring. The Durham investigation has that plan was called the Operation Snow Globe. That was Brennan Obama's name for it. Snow Globe, they were trying to get Hillary to step into a snow globe. I'm looking for a prop. A snow globe that anytime they wanted, they could then pick up and shake for 8 years. My bribe was the bait to get her to step into the snow globe. That's all from it. This isn't a theory. I'm the guy in the room. I'm acknowledging I took part in all this, and I thought I was helping them conduct federal law enforcement. It turned out that I was helping them set up Hillary Clinton for a deep state to control her. That's why, and I came up public a year ago with some pictures that showed me with this Russian redhead, Maria Butina, lovely woman, that said, and so I'm saying this entire thing, this last 5 years, has been a coup. It was from Obama against Hillary, that when Trump won in a fluke, it got morphed into the Russian collusion delusion. And I say that as the guy that had romancing Maria and bribing Hillary Clinton. So I'm about as involved in this as you can get, and I promise you that's exactly what happened. And what we're seeing here is the last act play out. I was the last act play out. And the reason I mentioned that I knew in October 2018 that this was going to happen was because in 2018 I was offered, a federal agent came to tell me, Patrick, you need to understand there are billionaires walking around this world that we made, and we're prepared to do the same for you. You just have to stay calm. You just have to stay quiet through the election. And by that election, I knew he meant 2020 election. So I've known that they were going to hijack this election since October of 2018.
Does the Federal Bureau of Investigation and other departments need to be completely detonated, dismantled?
Well, I think what you need to do is, there was a guy, the CEO of, I forget if it was Allstate or State Farm, decades ago. It was based in, which one of those is based in Chicago? Do you know?
State Farm is Chicago.
State Farm then. They had a big headquarters filled with 10,000 people, bureaucracy. And the CEO bought a cornfield a couple hundred miles away, and he built a building for 500 people, and he started moving people to it, and until he got a new mini headquarters, and then he just shut off the original one. That's, sometimes bureaucracies get so big and so bad, that's the only way to fix them. The way to fix them is to hit them in the head, is to start again and build an alternative and then just shoot them in the head. That the bureaucracy in the head, and I think that's the only way that's going to be to fix our FBI, our beloved FBI. I have such respect. I grew up with this, revering the FBI, and I still revere, the men and women in it up to the mid-level. And there are people beyond that who are good. You can't throw the baby out with the bath water, but they are systemically corrupted at this point. So that story I just told you is absolutely the truth. There was a bribe from Turkey, a $20 million bribe in the fall of 2015 to Hillary, and then they had me arrange another bribe for $18 million from a different government, which I'm not disclosing the name of that other government. And that's I think what the start of this coup really is.
Do you believe she's going to be held accountable at some point for this? Assuming President Trump is reelected for the next
Well, if he is elected again, if he does get through this, and I think that's a high, they were trying to demoralize people and make people think there's no chance of that. I think there's a high it's quite a conceivable outcome to me that he is the president on January 21st. And again, I'm not saying that as a guy who voted for him. I'm saying it as a guy who cares about the country, and I do not want to see it hijacked. If we go down on this, if we go down to this assassin's maze, it's our last free election. I lived in China, 83, 84. I speak Chinese. I've lived in Maoist China. It was right after the Cultural Revolution. And that's what's coming for us. And I think this is our last real election. We'll have, this stuff was built in Venezuela so that Hugo Chavez could get through the referendum of 2003. And that's the basic architecture of the software of Smartmatic. And it has now become the core of two of the major commercial systems offered for sale in the United States. And Venezuela hasn't really had an honest election in 20 years. People are starving, and the government still wins its election. It's because it's all crooked. The software that lets them do that is the software that's in the heart of our systems. If we bend a knee to this, it could be 1,000 years of darkness, and the world knows that.
Okay. So obviously you stepped away from your company, you say for the good of the company and the good of the country. You say that you got tangled up in the deep state investigation into President Trump. Tell me, how did all of this start?
Let me give you the bottom line up front. So listen, I'm a hippie. I have nothing to do with the feds. I'm a flag-waving hippie. Twice in my life I had the honor of helping them. A friend of mine named Brian Williams was murdered 17 years ago. I helped them bring the murder to justice, and I helped them fight Wall Street about 12 years ago. I was kind of a one-man Occupy Wall Street in 05, 06. The Fed showed up, and it was my honor to help them take down a couple hundred people on Wall Street. So that's that. Let me jump to the bottom line, and this I've learned is the quickest way to explain it. In 2015, 2016, they got back in touch with me for the third time. and it was, I was given some fishy orders. And I carried them out thinking in 2015, 2016, thinking I was conducting law enforcement. Let me emphasize.
Well, I know Patrick Byrne. I've known him for years, and I spent 45 minutes with him on the phone today talking about it. When he indicates that he has previously worked with the FBI and provided information, he's telling the truth. Back in 2005 and 2006, I was chief counsel at the Senate Judiciary Committee, and he brought to us inside information about manipulation that was going on in Wall Street. It turned out that it was accurate, and it was investigated, and it became part of a much larger investigation. So my experience with him is very fascinating, because while he's eccentric, he's been accurate historically with me and with others.
Wow, so Brett Tolman is absolutely unequivocal about this. Patrick Byrne was telling the truth about his connections with the FBI in the past.
The men in black, as I called them, showed up and asked for this third favor. Well, anyway, I'm not going to go into the details right now, but I didn't know who sent the orders, but I did them. They seemed fishy. Last summer watching television, and here's the punchline, people. Last summer watching television and some congressional hearings, I figured out where those orders came from. They gave him a guy named Peter Strzok, and Bill Freestaff, Garland, McCabe, Comey. That was who sent the orders. Well,
you're naming a bunch of FBI people there.
Well, the Peter Strzok, and it has been confirmed to me that my instructions came from Peter Strzok, that the people who carried me the orders were coming and taking it on behalf. That's been confirmed.
So you had helped the government a couple of times. They reached out to you. What did they ask you to do?
I don't want to go into the nitty-gritty right now. The nitty-gritty, I can tell you the main event, and I feel terrible. I've been watching for 3 years, and our country's coming apart, and people are killing each other, and I finally went to see Buffett. And Buffett's kind of my rabbi, I call him. And he said, Patrick, you have to come forward. And I said, it's going to make some feds furious at me. Their heads are going to explode. And he said, you let feds do their job. You're a citizen. You got your job. You're coming to the public. Here's what it is. This was all political espionage conducted against Hillary Clinton, Rubio, Cruz, and Trump. This is not a theory of mine, some political theory. I was in the room when it happened, in a way. I mean, not in a way. I was part of it. I didn't know. I knew I had some of the pieces. I thought I had the pieces of something much bigger. Last summer, as stuff bubbled into the news, thanks to good journalists such as yourself, I started realizing I had these very important missing pieces. I actually started trying to help then, but I had to wait until there was a return to rule of law in our country. And I've lived in places where there. And that took waiting until Bill Barr got installed. And then I don't know the guy. I never shaken his hand or anything, but only then did I trust things enough. And I went to the Department of Justice and started
you told them what you knew.
What I know.
Yeah. It's my understanding that I should just point this out, because some people might be listening and saying, well, how credible is this? And we did some asking around, and we have basically had the indications that that there's every reason to believe that your story is indeed credible. So I'm
not in the convincing business. I'm in the business
I hear you.
The door
and obviously, but let me go back to the basics, because this is what everybody's saying at home. This is what everyone's saying at home. What did they tell you to do? What did they ask you to do, Patrick?
There was some of it involved this young lady, Maria Butina, who came here. So some of it involved her.
Okay.
Some of it involves setting up Hillary Clinton for what looked like law enforcement was actually setting her up to be blackmailed. I helped them set up Hillary Clinton to be blackmailed.
What was the nature of the blackmail?
Can't go into it. And so I'm sure there's a bunch of people in Washington who are going to rip me apart. And I've actually been warned. I was warned last October, from a friendly person, Patrick, if you come forward, this entire town of Washington is going to destroy you. It's going to turn you into dust.
And, I give you a lot of credit because I know that you said that you did some soul searching over the summer and you talked to good friends, and you mentioned one of them a moment ago. What was the nature of your relationship with Marie Buchanan? Did she reach out to you, or did you reach out to her? And how involved were you? Did you have an affair with her for 3 years, or what was the nature of your relationship?
Have you seen the video? I bet you've played it, where candidate Trump is at a conference and this young girl stands up and asks her a question.
Sure.
They were setting this up. The thing that's important to know is the Russia hoax wasn't technically really about Donald Trump. It was set up on the Republican Party, and it was being
no matter who was the nominee was going to get it.
Exactly. It was a coup. And in the middle, it was the beginnings of a coup on the Republican Party. And in the middle of that, they started the coup on the Democrat Party. And that's what you first asked me about, the Hillary side of things. You want to talk about that?
Yeah.
They were aware of a foreign government that wanted to bribe her, Azerbaijan. I revealed it in the book. And they taught me, the FBI agents taught me about a sting and the legal theory of stings and how they work, how Hillary had tripped it, and now Comey had authorized. Well, this is the key part. That Comey, and my book explains like word for word how the exact speech they gave me and how they asked me to do this. But at the end of this, they asked me that the folks in New York, the squad in New York, are asking your help. Comey has authorized a sting on Hillary, and they want you to get her to in the position to accept this bribe. He wanted me to bribe her. And I said, when they asked me, I said, gentlemen, this is I've done everything for Uncle Sam's on a handshake, but you're asking me to get involved in a federal election and bribe a presidential candidate. I'm going to need something on a piece of paper for this. And they said, let's go back to the office. They came back 2 or 3 days later, and they said, we've been told to tell you we can't give you a piece of paper. Now, this word for word, we can't give you a piece of paper, but the director says if you'll go to Washington, D.C., you can be shown a piece of paper. And I said, oh, this is coming from the director. And 2 federal agents leaned into me and said, and I said, oh, this is coming all the way from the president? And 2 federal agents leaned in and said, I said, well, gentlemen, you can tell Director Comey and President Obama that from them is good enough for me. Consider Hillary bribe. What do you need? And they told me, Patrick, you got to find somewhere in the world. There's going to be a room in the next 2 months. You're to bring about this state of affairs. Somewhere in the world, there's going to be a room. We don't care where. And Hillary Clinton's going to walk into that room, and the bag man from Azerbaijan is going to walk into that room, and they're going to spend 10 minutes alone together in that room. You pull that out and you make that happen any way you want. And I said, okay, now you understand I'm going to be bribing people and stuff. And they said, yes. And I'm not going to tell you how one does something, like goes to a country like Azerbaijan and shows them you're the type of guy who can and will do things like this and finds their bag man and works this out. We'll leave that part of the story for another day.
Okay. All right.
But what's key to know is on January 14th, 2016, in a hotel room in Washington, Hillary Clinton met with and accepted a bribe from the bag man from Azerbaijan. I can tell you just how it was done. Shall I walk you through how it was done that morning?
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. She was on I think it was the 8th floor, and her assistant was on the 5th floor. And by prior arrangement with her, how this was done was her limousine was supposed to leave at 9 a.m. The bag man was brought in at 8:30, taken up to the 5th floor, and went into her assistant's room. At 8:47, she leaves her hotel room on the 8th floor, leaves it a little bit early than you would for a 9 a.m. limousine, but leaves it, goes down, hops off the elevator on the 5th floor, and goes down and into her assistant's room, and the assistant steps outside the door. So now Hillary Clinton's alone with that bag man for 10 minutes. She came out, comes in, gets in the elevator, down, gets in her limousine, and leaves at 9:01, 9:02. It's not in her schedule, but it happened the morning of January 14th, 2016, in a hotel room in Washington. And so there's the end of. So this story really has 4 segments to it.
What came from it? What was the money for? What did it buy? Did it just go to the Clinton Foundation?
No, it was a direct deposit to a numbered account in Azerbaijan. And why don't I organize, so this just doesn't turn into a kaleidoscope. Why don't I organize this, what I'm telling you? There's really 4 chapters to what I'm telling you tonight, Roseanne. Okay. And the first chapter is that setup of the Russian collusion hoax. Middle of that, setting that up. And that was for Brennan.
That was just a practice to get fake FISAs.
That was to get fake FISAs on the Republicans. That was to get it so whoever came to power in the Republican Party had FISAs on. They had contacts with a Russian girl on. They had pictures of one, they had movies of her standing up and asking one candidate a bunch of questions. They had her, going out to dinner with other Republicans. So they were letting her smudge up the Republican Party in a way they normally would never let happen. So that's chapter 1. Chapter 2 is this bribe that I'm telling you about. Chapter 1 happened in the fall of 2015. Chapter 2, the bribe, happened on January 14th, 2016. However, I'm not done with chapter 2. What's important, and if you guys will listen to the next few minutes, you will understand.
We can't wait.
We're not going anywhere.
Your audience will understand the last 9 years in a way it has not happened before.
Can't wait for them to understand it.
This is what happened. A few days later, after that meeting, I met with my handlers. And they told me, I thought they were going to be, they're very formal. I call them the men in black. I don't even like to say the FBI because really the FBI is not as bad as everybody thinks. The FBI is good. It got hijacked from the top in a way I'm going to explain.
Right. Like everything.
Yeah, it got hijacked from the top. It got captured. And this is how it got captured. They said, Patrick, we need to tell you. So I thought they were going to be exciting and they were going to tell me, because they had the room bug, they were going to tell me, yes, she did go in and she accepted it, and blah, 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 what was said or whatever, show me a transcript maybe, celebrate. They're just the opposite. These guys were stern as could be. And they said, Patrick, this mission has been reanalyzed and the whole mission is being scrubbed and we need you to forget any of this ever happened. And I said, why? What's going on, fellas? You could have her indicted next week. They said, no, Patrick, it's been analyzed again from the top and we've realized. So this conversation is about January 20 of 2016. So the beginning of the presidential campaign, but her coronation was inevitable. And they said, Patrick, we see it's been analyzed. She's going to be president. Nothing can stop that. So what she's going to do is her first day in office, she's going to send her people over to the FBI and they're going to ask who was part of investigating Hillary Clinton. And anyone who was part of this is going to be destroyed. And Patrick, this includes us. It includes our chain of command. It includes you too, Patrick. So this mission has been scrubbed from the very highest levels. We need you to promise us you will forget every moment of this. And I said, yes, sir, I promise. It didn't make any sense to me for a number of reasons. One, they would have analyzed it that way before I did it. It took quite a lot of law breaking to make this thing happen. Secondly, they were acting panicked or scared, and these are not men who get scared. These are guys.
Oh, right. Uh-huh. Yeah.
Third, it felt like the right thing to do. I know this sounds corny. I know I'm associated with the hard republic right now because of this side of my life. I had kept to the ethics of a military officer. I never criticized either president. I was always very. Right. One of the reasons I always embraced the Libertarian Party.
Of course, you weren't a Trump lover, right?
I wasn't a Trump hater. I was never a Trumper. I was like a military officer. Whoever wins, that's who I'm going to serve. That's who I'm going to.
Right.
And I sort of 95% agree with Trump about things. 95%. Yeah. So stylistically, we're different. I'm a Yankee from northern New Hampshire and Vermont. We're kind of plain, and we see Trump as brash. But you know what? Even that kind of eventually started to grow on me too. But I wasn't so it wasn't about that. But they told me this, and it wasn't sitting with me. I thought the right thing to do. Folks, we spent the 90s with a Democrat in the White House under investigation. That's
right.
The Clintons. Let's give the Democrats a chance to pick someone clean, and they can move forward. We can't just do this again. And so there was another meeting in the first week but they gave me my instructions, and I said, okay, I'll forget it. I went home, and that was not sitting well with me. And this is where the story gets very pointed. Right. They said, I met them again in the first week of February, and they brought another man to the meeting, and the other man was another FBI agent. But they told me that that there were provisions in the law that made it such that if the CIA wanted to, the director of the CIA can basically take the steering wheel of the FBI.
Is that Brennan? That's Brennan, right?
Brennan. And that Brennan, and I think they indicated several months earlier over the Maria stuff, had signed that and was now running the FBI as far as any Russian matters went. And from now on, this man would be sitting in the room with us auditing, and he was the FBI liaison to Director Comey's personal liaison to Director Brennan. He's going to be sitting in the meetings from now on. And this is where they eventually let their hair down and explained to me the truth. And you can, in the next 60 seconds, your viewers will now understand what's really happened in the last 9 years. You ready for this one?
Yeah, ready.
What they told me was, Patrick, this is early February 2016. What I was told, I'll say it now, there was actually a fourth federal involved that actually said most of this to me, but the other three then confirmed it. But I'll leave that fourth federal out of it. That Patrick, what's really going on is that President Obama has his people across the federal bureaucracy now, but especially the Department of Justice. Remember, this is 8 years into his term. So especially the Department of Justice. Hillary Clinton is going to be president for 8 years, and nothing's going to change that. But think of it this way. Think of there as being a Bunsen burner in the Department of Justice. Do you remember what a Bunsen burner is from high school chemistry?
Yeah.
Yeah, that thing you turn up and down, the flame, the butane. Your Bunsen. Think of there as being a Bunsen burner. And the information about the bribe is going to be sitting on that Bunsen burner, Hillary's bribe. The hand on the Bunsen burner is going to be one of Barack Obama's people. And if Hillary's a good girl and defends Obamacare and such, that flame stays low. If she's a bad girl and starts thinking for itself, it gets turned up. And that way, President Obama is going to manage Hillary Clinton for the 8 years she's president, and then Michelle's going to run. And Patrick, that's the plan. And I was later to learn that this plan was called Operation Snow Globe. Snow Globe. We had, Christmas kids get a little glass ball that you shake, and this was a snow globe. They wanted Hillary Clinton in a snow globe that Obama and Brennan and Comey could shake up anytime they wanted while she's president. My bribe was the lure. It was the bait to lure her to step into that snow globe. Capiche? Capiche?
Yeah. Blackmailed.
Repeat that back, because you explain things so well. How would you sum?
She's blackmailed, so therefore compromised and owned.
Mm-hmm. And owned, which means effectively, if she's then president for 8 years, and then Michelle's installed, that gives us 24 years of Barack Obama. But even more broadly, remember how he came in saying, I want to fundamentally transform America? That gives somebody, since Washington, we've had this tradition of two. And it was just, this is a fellow who thinks he knows so much. He's going to fundamentally transform, and he wants 24 years to do it. So this was all a coup. And if it feels like you're living through a coup, I promise you are living through a coup. It all started around Thanksgiving 2015 to 2016, and I was part of it. So after I received this threat, I'll close chapter 2 on this last point. They leaned over to me and they said, so when we tell you, Patrick, that you have to erase this, every second of this from that memory of yours, we're telling you it's a matter of life and I said, and they said,
and 2 FBI agents stared at their shoes as the third guy threatened my life. And he didn't quite say death. He said, when we tell you got to erase everything, every second of this from that memory of yours, it's a matter of life and I said, yes, sir, I get it. And so there was that moment, and 2 FBI, I want to emphasize, these guys all turned out to be good guys. As hard as that may be to believe, they protected me. I haven't gone into it, but they saved my life. These 3 guys. Chapter 3 is a flashback of 10 years. Are you ready to flash back with me from 2016 to 2006? You ready?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I first after I took Overstock.com public, I became known I ended up in a fight against Wall Street. In this very public fight, I knew 2008 was coming. I understood some of the factors, and I tried to alert all the authorities you would think you would alert. And what I discovered from NASDAQ and NYSE and the SEC and the Senate Banking Committee and the House Financial Services Committee and the financial press of Wall Street, I had the proof that something very corrupt was going on. And I thought the world worked like it does in the Pelican Brief, when Julia Roberts figures out the scheme of the evil corporation and she makes it public, and the DOJ swoops in and the Washington Post swoops in. Oh my gosh, that's so funny. That's not at all what happens. What happens is all that corruption is feeding a lot of mouths, and when you start to talk about it, the whole world descends. So that happened, and I was very surprised. But the Senate Judiciary Committee, and I've always told that story publicly that way before, that all that I discovered was all of Washington was corrupt. No one would help. The people and institutions you think are looking. We had Harvard economists, we had Wall Street, Goldman insiders, we had every bit of shred of evidence you could have, and we tried to get the SEC and all these other people that there was a mass crack in the financial system. And hedge funds were looting hundreds of billions and probably trillions out of the system, and it was showing up as profit. And we had every scrap of this to prove it, and yet I had all these doors slammed in my face until finally the Senate Judiciary Committee grabbed a hold of me and they brought me into their warm embrace. Yeah, and that's the kind of thing I was realizing in 2005 to 2008, that our federal government. We think it's protecting us from them. No, it's been captured and turned against us. The economists even have a term for that called regulatory capture. But anyway, so I'll move on. There was one group in Washington, and I always kept this secret, that there was actually one group in Washington who was quite honest. It was the Senate Judiciary Committee, and both sides, Democrat and Republican. In fact, it was run at the time by a Democrat named Arlen Specter. Then he switched to Republican for a term or two, and then he switched back to Democrat at the end of his life. So he was really this great institutionalist, and he was admired by both sides, and he was the Senate chairman, the Judiciary chairman. But there were other senators on both sides, part of what happened. And what happened was they had me basically spy against the government for them. They had me going around taking in the chin from federal agencies and just continued taking in the chin, fighting Wall Street. But really, they had my back. And what they told me, Patrick, is
that's great to know. It's so great to know that they were on our side. The people.
They were the Senate Judiciary and both sides, Dems and Republicans. And what they told me was the following story. They said, Patrick, we're the ultimate protectors of the Constitution because we have the mandate to investigate corruption. And corruption is anything that could be touched by a civil or criminal penalty counts as corruption, which means that we technically can look into anything we want to look into in the United States, from the manufacture of nuclear weapons to anything, and no one gets to tell us no. And so it was under that umbrella that I spent like a year interacting with other parts of the government and reporting on them to the Senate Judiciary Committee and other members of Congress and the SEC and other regulatory bodies. So it was very strange because the world saw me as getting
getting beat up. Byrne, why are you getting beat up? These people are going to throw you in prison. They didn't understand that the whole time I had this 800-pound gorilla standing behind me, and I knew that none of these people were going to lay a glove on me ultimately. So after about a year of this, we reached this very funny point, and this is kind of the crucial moment in this book. This happened in September of 2006. I was told to come. Senator Hatch called and said, come alone to such and such a place in D.C. Don't bring anybody. Don't bring a lawyer. I went. There was a room with at least 7 senators in it, Democrats and Republicans, including this Democratic chairman, Democrat turned Republican, detransitioning. Is that what they call it now? Detransitioning. Detransitioning back to Democrat. And they said, and I know this sounds crazy, but I can tell you that this story's now been out there for a year, and there's a number of journalists who have confirmed this, and you'll see it confirmed on the screen very shortly.
Who are these people? Well, besides Arlen Specter, the senator who came to Utah, who used to take me for walks, that was Orrin Hatch. There was one senator I talked to about my favorite moment in life, the day I was making maple syrup. That was Patrick Leahy from Vermont. So I was talking about maple syrup. Chuck Grassley, and Patrick Leahy and Chuck Grassley have gone on to be the ranking Democrat and Republican members of the Senate Judiciary Committee. I've never named him publicly. Senator Crapo was there. I'm not going to tell you the other Democrat because I didn't know him at the time, and I'm not 100% sure. I'm about 70% sure who it was. There was another Democrat. I'm just not. He was a medium height man, brown hair, kind of held himself like a general, slim. I remember him, but I'm not entirely sure, so I'm not going to use his name. There was somebody who was not on the committee, and that was Kit Bond. And they're the ones who stood in that room and asked me to do this 15 years, pardon me, and 2 months ago. So now I'm wrapping up. Brett Tolman, the guy in that video at the beginning, he was the general counsel. He wrote the first draft of that letter, and he's told me that Specter was saying, you can't leave to go be U.S. attorney until you finish the first draft of that letter. There's another staffer who was there who knows about it. Oddly enough, for reasons I won't explain, Trey Gowdy and his law partner in South Carolina, no, I'm not going to say who, know about this letter as well. The New Yorker, Sheila Khachtar, Matt Taibbi, and Sarah Carter all know about this letter, and various aspects of it have been confirmed. They've had staffers and such confirm there is a letter from 2006 in the files that's extraordinarily unusual, and it has the language unusual or extraordinary latitude under the laws of the United States of America in it.
They called me back and they said I was surrounded by 7. It was the strangest meeting of my life. They were standing in a room, 7 senators around me, and they said, we think that you're right, Patrick, about what you've been saying publicly about corruption and what you're showing us. See, let me back up one last second. In that period, there's 2 stories to follow. One is what I learned about Wall Street and the Wall Street corruption. But the other story, more important really, is how did Washington, D.C. respond? And it responded in a way that showed they didn't care at all. It responded in a way that they were captured. And the Senate and Judiciary was focusing on that. And they became convinced I was right about what I was saying about Wall Street, but they were also saying, look, joining me in saying, look at how these Washington institutions that should be responding are not responding. The crux of Chapter 3 is this. They called me in, I go in, and they say, Patrick, we told you, sorry, I don't want to lose my voice on you. Yeah. We told you that we have the ultimate, our power transcends any power within government because we investigate corruption. We can do anything we want. We think you're right. There's some kind of corrupt force taking over the U.S. government. This was a Democrat with another couple Democrats there and few Republicans, including, incidentally, the chairman of the Senate Intelligence Committee, that big guy from Missouri, Kit Bond. But the others were Republicans and Democrats from the Judiciary Committee. They said, we think you're right about not just what you're saying about Wall Street, but what's going on underneath the table here in Washington. It's like there's some force is taking over the United States government through corruption. And we can't even tell you what it is. Some days it seems like it's a foreign government. Some days it's internal. We can't even tell you. But we can tell you it's our job to stop it. And we can't stop it. And he went on describing it. And I was, just for a moment, I was so elated because I'd spent 18 months telling the world exactly that and having the whole world and newspapers bash me. This guy's crazy. No one should listen to him, blah, blah, blah. You know, and yet here these important senators from both sides have looked at all the same evidence and everything as I have, and they say, you're right. And they say, Patrick, we're going to make this request of you. Well, I said, finally, I know, sir, this is what I've been saying. How do you even stop something like this? And he says, Patrick, we're going to stop it because we have you and you're going to stop it. That's why you're here. And all these senators are like, yeah, that's why you're here. And they told me that I had an assignment from them, and the assignment was to disrupt that corrupt force taking over the United States government. They had heard that they had become aware of my prior relationship with the United States government, and they had learned a lot about it. And evidently in the course of that, they were told several times that Patrick is known in certain circles as somebody who does, and the expression that the senator used with me was, they say that you're somebody who does extreme things to accomplish whatever you're asked to accomplish, Patrick. So we won't go into why that is, but two of them actually said that to me. They knew about that. Whatever reason, they told me all this. They told me this night, the seven of them standing there. It was an Indian summer afternoon. And they said, we're going to be with the president tomorrow night, and we're going to show him this letter, and we want you to read it. And they held up a 1.5-page letter. I stood with my hands behind my back, and a senator held it. So I was this close trying to understand it. And the first paragraph said how concerned they were about the phrase I remember is systemic corruption infiltrating the federal institutions of our national government, something like that. And then, or our nation's government. And then the second paragraph says, the Senate Judiciary Committee requests that Patrick Byrne be afforded extraordinary latitude under the laws of the United States of America to, and it was there, I'm not quite sure, but it was like investigate and disrupt corruption or something very action-oriented. And I was very, and I got a chance to sort of glance at this for 15, 20 seconds. And then they said, look, this is not a pardon. You can't go kill anyone. But Patrick, your country needs you to make this the center of your life. You're going to figure out what is this corruption, and you're going to disrupt it. And we may not be here, we may not be senators, we may not be alive, but this letter is going to be sitting the rest of your life in a safe in Washington, D.C. And so, now that really happened. And there's staffers of the time who've confirmed that really happened. And there's people who have sat with senators who say, a number of journalists, Matt Taibbi knows about this letter. Sheila Kal-Hakhtar of the New Yorker knows. It's been confirmed by several people. It has not been made public, but there'll be more on that this year. So that really happened. And let me ask you something, and then we'll close chapter 3. I'll close this with a question. We're going to fast forward 10 years again. I'm now sitting in a room with 3 federal officials, 3 federal agents, who are telling me, basically, we've just bribed Hillary. I've been told to forget it. I won't drop it. And they tell me what's really going on, Patrick, is, yeah, you bribed her. You thought it was for a sting, but actually it's going to be used to blackmail her. So Obama, Brennan, and Comey keep her in a snow globe for 8 years. Then she steps down and Michelle takes over, and that's the plan. Would you say, Roseanne, that counts as systemic corruption infiltrating the federal institutions of our nation's government?
Absolutely.
Not only that, I'd say that's RICO.
You sure? Because I'm going to be telling this to 12 citizens, good and true, someday, I think. So, would you say that?
RICO, it's sedition. It's canceling the votes of Americans. It's a coup.
It's a coup. It's hijacking the government. This is February of 2016. This is all November of 2015. Well, the fall of 2015, I was dating Maria, having this affair, but really setting up the origins of the Russia hoax. In January, February, I have the bribe on Hillary. They tell me to forget it, the Bunsen burner.
and now they're threatening my life. And if you agree that that is systemic corruption infiltrating the federal institutions of our nation's government, that is a very good thing, because at that point, I decided to avail myself of extraordinary latitude under the laws of the United States of America. I decided on the spot I was going to ruin their day. I was going to destroy them the moment I got a kill shot. I was going to destroy them, destroy these people, my chain of command behind all this, the moment I got a kill shot. And what I said was, yes, sir, I understand. I promise I will erase every moment of this from my memory. I promise. But on the inside, I'm thinking, I'm going to bring your whole world crashing down the moment you sons of bitches give me a kill shot. And like I say, I think my handlers were actually good men. I think that it was very clear I think their lives were threatened too. They were family. They all had families. I could tell they looked sick to their stomach. They were not the kind of guys who did this type of stuff. They looked sick to their stomach. Looked to me like they couldn't even look me in the eye, frankly. So, that's the end of chapter 3. Are you with me now?
Yes.
We had the setup of the Russia hoax, the setup of the Hillary Clinton thing, and then my flashback so the setup of the Russian thing really in the second half of 2015 began. The setup of the Hillary Clinton bribery and blackmail was January, February. And then I've given you the 2016, and then I've given you the flashback to 2006. Does it all make sense?
Yes, it does. Absolutely.
I can promise you, it's not a theory, there was a coup that began around Thanksgiving of 2015. And the names used with me when these assignments started getting weird were Comey, Brennan, and eventually Obama however, again, it's quite possible it's people in the shadows, and those names were being used to get me to do stuff. However, there's a simple way to find out. The Senate could find out who signed off on the rape and murder of Maria Butina, and I think we'll get to who's behind the Russian hoax, who's behind the whole Hillary Clinton, all bribery, that whole investigation going nowhere but being used to set her up so they could control her. Who's behind this 2020 color revolution we're going through? Go find out who signed off on the rape and murder of Maria Butina.
Can I just jump in for a second? Where we left off was you said you set up this kill shot with who called the order for the rape and murder of that's where we ended. So I don't know if you want to continue that story, because I just have to be continued graphics show up. And
no, I will get to that next, but let me just go here
That's
first.
where we were. I'm just letting you know.
Okay.
I'm not in sequence, but we'll get to sequence.
We'll say that for the end if you want. If your viewers view to the end, I'll share with you, because I have been told who signed off on the aggravated rape and possible murder of Maria Butina. It was signed off on.
No, we're going to get there. Right. Believe me, I got it all in my head. Okay. But I want you to go first. And now I forgot what I was saying. Thank you.
The child porn, the kiddie porn.
Is kind of important in a podcast. So.
Yeah. Well,
you got it.
Your mom's
Blue Anons tried to put they've caught someone trying to put child porn on Trump, you were saying.
They saw that it was more of the same of setting Trump up, right?
They saw, there was a case brought against Perkins Coie, I think, somebody from there, about they tried to set up Trump by building a fake connection between him and a Russian bank called Alpha Bank. And Perkins Coie hired some computer scientists, professors, I think, in Georgia, who they got in and they put in a clumsy way some stuff they were trying to link the two. It all got exposed. The guy was prosecuted. No, of course it was DC, so no one got convicted because the rule of law doesn't exist there. But they made that connection. What the transsexual Democratic Party hacker activists who got in touch with me turned over was, and I was told that there was some stuff that had been acquired in maybe a manner of dubious legality, or who knows what. But they wanted to turn it over to
like this uncorruptible cell within the United States. It wasn't clear to me whether they knew they were dealing with me or not. It probably they did. We were dealing through an intermediary who reached out to me with it and had me go to see the people involved. And I said, I let my government contacts know, I have no idea. They tell me there's this hard drive with a bunch of really bad stuff on it. And I don't know what it is. It could be snuff films. It could be nuclear secrets. I don't want to get, because, it turns out if there's no justification for having kitty or any of that kind of stuff on your hard drive. And there's a specific federal process where you get sort of allowed and told you're able to go touch this stuff and get to and so I went out and this was, I don't want to go into too much detail, but imagine messages along the lines of, look, in a certain state, in a certain national forest, on a certain trail, you go X many miles in and there's a log, a tree fell on the side of the trail. If you go over to a rock at the end of the log and you lift it up, you're going to find this metal box, Mr. Byrne, was this kind of stuff. Anyway, I recovered some material. And it turned out to be, and I don't want to even go into it, it turned out to be that Perkins Coie had not just tried to plant stuff on Trump's machines linking him to Alpha Bank. They planted on Trump's machines, or they tried to plant on his email server some kiddie porn. And to get it, these Perkins Coie computer scientists from Georgia went over to some website in the Ukraine and recovered kiddie porn. And then they tried, and these people supplied all the forensic proof, that had happened, that the machines that had done it, and from Perkins Coie and the site they had gone to. I had never seen kiddie porn. I don't want to say much about it. But anyway, turns out Perkins Coie had this, and they had their people trying to plant this on Trump's machine. I brought this back. It turned out of the many things I brought back in 2021 and 2022, in those years there were still people in government who were asking me to do things. None of us are friends anymore. There's big walls between us. I think Christopher Wray ended up sending a letter to 35,000 people in the FBI with my name at the top saying no one is allowed to have any interaction with this man. But in any case, I brought back this hard drive that had this proof, along with some other things we can talk about. I got some very strange phone calls from the FBI after that, asking me, had I destroyed this? Had I kept a copy? And I thought, that's weird. Like I'm going to keep a copy and enjoy it myself? Crazy. Of course not. And I told them, what a weird question. Of course not. Then they got back and they asked it again. And I thought, this is weird. They're not asking me for that reason. They want to know if they can destroy it or not. And you know what? I'll share this news with you. They did destroy it. Judge Garland instructed Christopher Wray to destroy it, and Christopher Wray destroyed it and actually stood in the FBI lab while that was being nuked. But I figured out from the way they were asking these questions, it was very unusual. No one would ever ask me a question like that normally. And I really thought at first, are they kidding? Like I'm going to keep this and enjoy it? I took offense when they asked me. And then I realized that's not why they're asking me. They're asking me because they want to know if they can delete it or not. And
how dirty is that Perkins Coie? I mean, they're in the middle of everything, it seems like.
And guess what? I went back. I had not kept a copy, of course, but I went back to the transsexual, patriotic, Democratic Party hacker activists and got it back, got a new copy. They still had it. So I have material that I can prove that I surrendered to the FBI, showing the culpability, showing Perkins Coie, computer scientists involved in kiddie porn to plant on Trump's machines, and I can prove this was through other federal agents. This was who will witness. This was turned over to Christopher Wray, and if some Senate investigation wanted to say, Christopher Wray, show us the copy that Byrne turned over to you, they couldn't, because Christopher Wray personally oversaw it being nuked in an FBI lab. So that's why it's so damaging and why they wanted to be sure that I hadn't kept a copy, because if I didn't, I wouldn't be able to prove that. but I can actually prove that they had this and that they destroyed it because they can't produce their original version now. In 2020, Durham's sent someone out to see me and showed me a bank statement that they had gotten from a bank in Azerbaijan that showed a numbered account with $18 million going into it in the last week of January 2016. So in other words, the country, they found Hillary Clinton's $18 million bribe.
Wow.
She had received $18 million in a numbered account in Azerbaijan. And so I said, so the guy was going to close the meeting then. And I said, I got to just ask, how did my whole rape murder gambit go? And this federal guy gave me a very severe look. And he actually had trouble speaking. He said, well, Mr. Byrne, after you offered to, when you gave the impression that you had drugged and raped Maria, after you left the room, it didn't take them 10 minutes to put the clues together. It took the agents 10 seconds. And they went back to headquarters and reported it. And they recommended that your whole mission be scrubbed. And they were overruled from above by Comey and Brennan to keep it going. And I said, yeah, but it wasn't scrubbed. It kept going for 5 more. And the guy said, well, yeah, he couldn't even say the words. He goes, after you offered to murder Ms. Bettina, the agents went back and refused to continue. They demanded that the mission be killed and to be scrubbed. And I said it wasn't scrubbed. It went on 5 more months. And the fellow said, someone else took all responsibility. I looked up at the sky and said, someone else took all responsibility. And I had it confirmed to me in the late fall of 2021 who that was. Barack Obama signed off on the rape and murder of Maria Butina so that they could continue using the two of us to create this fake Russian scandal. I'm told that's the biggest secret in the American government. There's a whole task force figuring out how to spin this to the world when it comes out. I'm kind of tired of waiting for government officials to do their job, so I'm just doing it for them. That's what happened. You got so quickly. This story that I've put out there is a knife. It's a dagger at their heart, because what it shows is that the Prince of Woke, Barack Obama, signed off on the rape and aggravated rape and possible murder of a girl he knew was innocent so that he could continue conducting this political espionage. 3 federal agents have a letter signed by Barack Obama promising that they could continue doing this. They were afraid they thought I was going to kill her and it would come back on them. There's a presidential finding telling 3 federal agents to ignore your belief that Byrne has manipulated, seduced, drugged, raped, and has a plan to murder this girl so that we can continue setting up this Russian thing. No one, I don't know the individual chain of command. John Brennan's behind. I think John Brennan is the puppet master. I think he's the puppet master behind Obama. I wouldn't be surprised if Obama is an asset, a CIA asset of John Brennan.
Of course.
He was kind of
Brennan is the caliphate.
6 months ago, I was sent a message. Somebody came to see me, and among the things that I was told 8 months ago, so that I would understand what we were up against, is I was told a detail of the crime scene. Oh, I'm getting a message from someone saying, do not reveal this. Sorry, I actually got a message from, I just got a message flashed up to me from someone saying, do not reveal this. And it's a person who knows.
Okay. I don't want you to reveal anything that will harm an investigation or harm you. That's okay. That's okay.
No, I'll tell you. I'm going to tell you. It was from the Epstein death scene. It was a detail that was shared with me, just one little detail of the scene that tells you, that was conveyed to me so I would understand what we are up against. And the the detail of the scene of the crime scene was one that this one detail shows that it was not a suicide. It was, in fact, a murder. And it's a detail that once you understand it reveals this isn't the Gambino family. This isn't the Genovese family. This had the sophistication. Well, I've got to say it now because otherwise they might kill me. But no, literally there was just someone sending me flash message, do not say this. So this is you know how the guards.
Come on, Patrick. You
know how the guards, we know that the guards, okay, to the person who just sent me that message, send me an explanation. Should I or should I not? If you don't want me to say this, give me 10 words as to why I should not say this. In the meantime, I'm going to give a little bit more color. It was a detail that was meant to communicate to me it was a murder and indicate to me the seriousness of the people behind it. Well, I guess it's too late. It was the Epstein crime scene, and the guards, I was told that the guards, who fell asleep and we all assumed they were bribed. Yeah, we all thought that. Well, guess what? They did fall asleep. Their blood was tested the next morning, and they found traces of nitrous oxide. So what's that tell you, Ann?
Wow.
Nitrous oxide is laughing gas, but doctors use it. Laughing gas.
Right, dentists use it. Dentists use it, right.
So that tells us that somebody snuck into a federal facility, a canister of laughing gas. They got access to the ventilation system. They snaked a hose to the right room, turned it on, knocked out the guards. Then they knocked out 14 cameras on that floor. Probably there's a goon cop a dirty cop who was in a cell down the block. He was probably the guy who did it. This was not confirmed to me, but he was let in. His door was open. He went and killed Epstein. And then they went back to a cell, and then they retrieved the hose. Someone retrieved the hose and exfilled, took out the canister of laughing gas. Now, that tells us something. Does that sound like a Gambino hit, or does that sound like maybe a state-level actor?
State level for sure. Absolutely. Mossad or...
Not Mossad.
Mossad?
Which state? Not Mossad. Which state?
Arkansas.
How about the deep state?
Well, the deep state, yeah, but the deep state is everywhere. You have deep state in China, you have deep state in Europe. The deep state's a worldwide deep state, but if you're talking about USG deep state, can you be more specific?
Well, that's what I was talking about. That detail was communicated to me back in June, so I would understand what it is I'm up against.
Right.
The deep state in maybe a branch in New York, but the deep state is who did that.
Through my work as a senior intelligence officer in the world of national security and special operations, I've known about the courageous work Patrick Byrne has been directed to do on behalf of the United States government. He has been unshakable when it comes to his relentless pursuit of exposing the deep levels of corruption within our government. For a man who thought that his life would be spent on overseas adversaries or working against the enemies of America, he found himself battling his own government. The incredible story of bribery, blackmail, rape, murder, and other tales, normally the stuff found in novels, are the truth coming from a man who was asked to enable, encourage, or conduct these actions on behalf of our very own government. Patrick's story is for real. He's for real. The corruption he's exposed is for real. And it only gets worse the further that you read. Danger Close. Domestic Extremist #1 Comes Clean by Patrick Byrne.